another Legion daily cast. This one's a bit later. Yeah, I struggled to find a hero game at this time, so I was waiting for one. This is the best one I could have gone for. It's still very reasonable elo here, so let's see what they are able to do here. We do arrive just right before wave 1 starts. We do have king ups from everybody, I do believe. Or is there any snails? There are snails here in lane 2 against the Zeus and against the Oathbreaker. So both of those lanes will be perfectly fine receiving those snails. While on the other lanes, we do have a Nightmare start on LoneWoofie and a Windhawk start from Wurakls? Wurakls. We're just gonna call him Wura. Alright, this is still a tree worker though for the Windhawk, meaning that he does go for the Violet. Did he have any option to go for? Yeah, he could have went for a 5-worker start and that add some buzzes for wave 2 and then shift the rest to get his Windhawk, and that could be possible with 4-5 workers. Not familiar with that start because it is a slow start and a risky one if you decide to go 5-worker. But with the tier 1s he had, he could have went for it. But this is a safe, slow start. Does put him at 3 workers, while all the others are at 5 workers now. He will join them, for sure. Yeah, he's pushing the 5th worker, but he's missing out on about 5 Mythium. Is it 5 Mythium or is it more? Compared to Sjusk, it seems that it is a bit more. It looks like it is more around 15. Missing. Yeah, no, 10. 10 or 15. 15. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean that's compared to a 5-worker start. Compared to the others, it's more 4 or 5 Mythium. So it's not the end of the world. He's still able to reach back up, but we did have a send here onto the Zeus player. With the cat here, should do pretty good, but had nothing tanking for the Zeus, meaning that the lizard, joining with the rest of the wave, will leak a little bit, I do believe. I think it's just the lizard, but still a little bit of a leak. It is a lizard +1, so not a perfect hole, but this kind of leak is still acceptable, especially since you're able to push the 6th worker and you are still saving on your opponent. We do have the Fiend from Ura against the Oathbreaker Wildshroom here. So don't dislike him going for income since there are new cutters, but now what we want to see is this is his only damage, right? So wave 5 and 6, he's still susceptible because of that. Yeah, and so I would love to see a resend from Wura on wave 5 against that, because if Sjusk wants to do well on wave 5, he needs another Oathbreaker, that's 75 gold. And so this means he cannot push 2 workers here, he can only push 1 if he wants to get this Oathbreaker. So let's see what is the decision that he will make. But he can also like push 2 and play a bit more risky. But I do think that he should only push 1. Okay, it looks like it is a 2-worker push here from Sjusk. Will not be able to get the Oathbreaker here. The resend does come. That is 20 only with the Snell. Will he go for the remaining? Yes, he goes for another Snell. And that's the greed we're talking about. Only 1 good tank left on this wave here. The rest dies pretty fast. And so this resend should be lethal, not lethal, but quite a big leak onto Sjusk. So we'll watch to do that, but there are still big sends on the other side. So we'll do a quick tour. This is imps onto the Violet. The Violet is supported by the Sacred Steed, so should do decent. The boss is already dead. There is some shared aggro, and the steed is tanking for the violet, meaning that it will be a hold. We do have a pilgrim here from the Zeus player, and looks like he's clearing pretty well. Looking at the recent here, the scorpions are now on the corners. There are 3 scorpions left, 1 snail left, so it might still be a hold here, just because of raw value, and we do have the Nightmare Oathbreaker with Butcher and Oathbreaker be able to hold the 100 income cent here. And it is indeed a hold here. The 40 recent was not enough to force a leak. So do have 8 workers on everybody except LoneWoofie. Now pushing to the 8th worker. He is a little bit undervalued here, but he is quite powerful with the lifesteal on the double. It looks like he's shifting, so he has 2 choices now to go for if he decides to stay at those 35 gold. It looks like he will. Either he goes for more DPS with a Nightmare, or he goes for a frontline with a Badger. I don't think the positioning in front of the Badger is what you want. Possibly want it on the back behind, so that this Overcur can still tank a little bit and use its passive. So no sense on wave 6 here, quite unriskable against the Violet, against the Zeus, against the Washroom, and against the Nightmare. We do have Income Sense coming on wave 7. But I do think that Sjusk and LoneWoofie could go for 8 cent, but they do decide to go here. They do decide to go on wave 7, and those are non-income cents, those are brutes. And we do have brutes also from APM onto the Nightmare player, and so the best solution against that for LoneWoofie is to go for another Nightmare right over here. So we want to see the Nightmare, but another good choice would be the Badger right over here. So it decided to put it here, does relieve a little bit of the pressure on this Oathbreaker. So we'll still see how it does. It's still a brute going on this side. And that's 2 brute onto the cat player here. The cats are tanking full here. So this might hurt, but APM is also sending 2 brutes. So this is big sense against the Nightmare player. And now it's just about does this Nightmare player, and it looks like the aggro is still pretty good on the Oathbreaker. So in the end, looks like it was a good position to put the Badger on. And we do see the Nightmare tanking it a little bit. It is tanking only the Brute right now. Now it's tanking most of the wave as well as the Brute. This will be a leak from the Nightmare player. As well as on the Pegasus here, the DTs here quite powerful against only nature defense. Yes, he has a Pegasus, but it's not tanking anybody. LoneWoofie, the Nightmare player, is leaking the 2 Brutes against the Zeus player. Does work out against the cats, and we do have here the income sense against the canopy not working quite well. So this means that Sjusk is able to hold the middle here. Only 1 brute remaining should be quite enough to be able to hold, while on the other side there is king damage taking place here, and this will not be small king damage. This will be around 25, 30, a total of 31%, 32% king damage, and we do have the income resent from Sjusk and LoneWoofie. Workers are still equal, and the income sense might turn the push into the favor of APM and Rura. But Rura is susceptible to a leak here. As we discussed, he has only nature defense, so one of his weakest wave. The fact that the Pegasus is not tanking anything does mean that it turns out to be a DPS unit in the end, especially if this Violet tanks everything as it is now. It is a full send from Sjusk and LoneWoofie. Let's see if it catches them off guard. So we do see here only income against 2 cats. Should be able to hold that. But this cat is dying, and it is a 7th stack Necromata, so it will be painful a little bit. But we do see here the Violet already dead, the Consort's already dead, only the Pegasus remaining, meaning that it will be a leak. Not a big one, only 5 remaining units. And we do see here in the end, it was still a hold from the recent onto APM. And we do see them taking the worker lead, the small, let's call it small league from Wura, does allow them to go for a bigger sense on wave 9 against the Nightmare, Butcher, and the Oathbreaker. So I do love to see the Brutes against the one who is massing those Oathbreaker and those Canopy. But I would have much preferred to see some Imps against LoneWoofie here. And the reasoning is that the HF is probably to come here. And the HF exactly that. And so you need to consider what is the best unit you can have. And normally the best answer is HF. And this HF has double lifesteal buff due to the special positioning. Normally you want to have this butcher on the wall over here so that you have 2 nightmares buffed by 2 lifesteal buff. But still, this positioning is better for a hold on wave 9. We do see 3 broods on both sides. Those are hardened monuments that are not as effective against brutes. So we'll see how they react. And to that, there is one brute pretty much exposed here that will be targeted quite early. This one it is, and this one should be not long for this world as well. It does look like it is getting focused now. We do have the monument tanking perfectly, buying time for the canopy to do damage as well as the corridor. And so this will be a hold from Sjusk. And we will have here the Edge Chef doing a great job here, targeting one of the 3 brutes. Only one remains, 3 carapace, and this looks like a hold as well from LoneWoofie. And we have Sjusk and LoneWoofie taking the work lead once again due to this failed send, shall we call it that way. I do think the send could have been better. They could have waited for wave 10, they could have waited for wave 11, and the resends here are just not what you need here. Luckily for them, LoneWoofie will not be able to get Doppel here because he decided to push quite heavily. And so he does miss some damage. He has a tank line, but he misses the damage. So it might be a leak from LoneWoofie on wave 10, but he has no shutdown. The shutdown is on Sjusk, and he does receive the reason as well. But you see, there is the corridor. The corridors are pretty good here, and you have the ranger to support as well as range damage. We do have a full reason on APM and Wura. And so what this does, it does open up the creditor avenue for Sjusk and LoneWoofie. Because this should be a hold from Sjusk, and this is probably a leak as well on LoneWoofie, but not a big one, I do believe. So we'll see how it does. Let's see on Sjusk. Should be the first clearing. I do have the decoder still protected, and now tanking, and it is indeed a clear from Sjusk. What about on the Nightmare side? Does have a leak, but this extra time is just extra pressure from Sjusk and LoneWoofie. So what they possibly want to do, you just go income on 11 or 12, you decide. You take Creditor, you do 11 Creditor, 12 Creditor, 13 Creditor. If you do decide to send 12, you protect your 13, of course. But let's see this. What they do skip wave 11. So their goal is to force an income send on wave 12 so that they can safely creditor on wave 13 as well. We do see here lacking in a bit of damage again on LoneWoofie. Does have the Tempest, but this should not be enough. And this is 300 gold undervalue here. So that is a danger now that they are facing. Is that this league should be a bit too much to handle in the middle from Sjusk. Sjusk is a bit safer here with a good frontline, good range DPS, as well as backline DPS to attack the wave and diminishes it. This is a good tank as well, so this should be a pretty decent clear. Here it is income king ups from Wura and APM. But it's just more push on Sjusk and LoneWoofie and also enable them to go for extra creditor stacks. As we see here, the Edge is tanking pretty much pretty well, shall I say. But the lack of damage is pretty substantial here. The Edge is dying, meaning that he has little to no tanks now, and that's more than a 50% leak to only income send plus king up. Do have a hold from Sjusk here, but LoneWoofie is struggling. It does buy in more time for their send, but he does lose a bit of gold from his creditor because of that leak. So we do have Wura and APM probably going for a resend here. We do have a full send here, going for non-income mercenaries in the route from Mura. Let's see if APM decides to do the same. Probably goes for the dino if he can reach it. That should be, yes, exactly, going for income. Probably the best thing they can do. Looking at what they took Sorcerer, both of them. I do not agree with the Sorcerer Boar. Personally, I do prefer to have it on something that's more substantial during the wave, and so is Zeus. A bit better. I think one of them going for Dark Soul could have been a very good play. We did have a Harden here, which is quite problematic here. And oh no, there was a Dark Soul here from Ura. I just didn't see correctly here, but if you go Dark Patrol, you don't want to harden on 11 because those kind of stuff can happen. Because you are on value on 11, but you fall down very fast on wave 12, so the harden was not necessary on wave 11 here, especially with a Violet support behind with Pegasus. Now let's see how he does through this 500 cent. The harden moment does not help, and this is a massive leak on this side. You have the red eye doing a pretty decent job, but that's what we call about sustained damage. There was no sustained damage by the board, so the sorcerer has reduced efficiency, and this is a big leap from APM, despite having red eye. So yeah, and so the big leagues does result into a defeat and a win from Sjusk and LoneWoofie. Very controlled and calm decisions, protecting their creditor by sending on wave 12 instead of 11, preventing a way to come back to for Rura and APM through pushing a lot of workers into a leak onto wave 13, which was their weak wave. And so yeah, controlled and calm decisions. I think it could have been done a bit better on LoneWoofie by putting a bit more damage, like waiting before pushing. Like if you know you want to go creditor, to wait before pushing here. You go for your double. Once you have your damage down, then you can push. You can take your creditor as well. So waiting for your thresholds are quite important in those situations, and that's a perfect example. You are ahead, you have a decent front line, the only thing you're missing is damage, and it results into a leak on 10, results into a leak on 11, and you miss out on some gold, but also on some push potential, because with that double, you're able to push way more aggressive, especially with that double lifesteal aura. So on that, as I say, thank you for watching. Hope you liked it and see you next time.